Welcome back to Tanach and Tea. I want to thank our sponsor for sponsoring tonight's Tanach and Tea, for the sushi, the cookies, etc., even though they did not want to be named. Don't worry, they're not in this room. Don't look around and say, oh, who is it? This is not somebody who's in this room right now, but thank you so much. If you listen to the recording, you know who you are. So, quick recap. We have some new people here today. We're doing the story of David Hamelech. So, we've been following this from the 16th parak of Shmuel Aleph, when we met David, when it was David versus Goliath, and then we got into the whole relationship between David and Shaul, and there's been a lot of things going on. We saw David with Naval and Abigail get married, Shmuel already died. We're already 11 prakim later, and at this point, David has already come to the decision, after sparing Shaul's life twice and trying to convince him that he doesn't seek his life, and he's still concerned that Shaul might want to kill him. At this point, David makes a decision that he's going to leave Israel. He's going to leave the borders. And where is he going to run to? He's going to run to none other than the Philistine. That's where he's going to run to, which obviously is our sworn enemy, right? Our sworn enemy are the Philistine, one of them. Fun fact, the modern-day Palestinians comes from the name Philistine, because after Rome kicked out the Jews, after the destruction of the second base Mikdash, the Roman emperor wanted to delegitimize our connection to the land of Israel, because at the time it was called land of Judah, because he realized that as long as it was called Judah, and we are known as Jews because we come from that land of Judah, that we would still try and fight for the land. So after the Bar Kokhba revolt, he renamed the land Syria Palestina, which was after our two arch enemies. Syria, Ashur in the north, that they're the ones who destroyed the 10 tribes, and Palestina was after the Philistine, who hadn't been around already for a couple hundred years since David Hamelech destroyed them. By the time David Hamelech's kingdom was over, he pretty much destroys the Philistine, and they get destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar entirely. So they were an extinct people, but he decided to rename the land Syria Palestina, and then it became known as Palestine, etc., etc. So that's the connection, but the Philistine are not the same people at all. But anyways, we're in Pasuk Chav Zayin, so David is now running to that land, and let's see what happens. Vayomer David. David says, Elibo, in his heart, to himself, Ata asafeh yom echad b'yad Shaul. One day I might perish at the hand of Shaul. Ein li tov. It's not good for me. Ki ha'maleti maleti ala eretz Plishtim. It's not good for me, to be here. I'm just going to run away to the land of the Plishtim. Now that's a crazy decision, right? As we just said with the history. And Goliath was from the Plishtim, right? David actually ran to the Plishtim before, and we'll discuss in a second what happened there. But that means things were really bad with Shaul, that it wasn't worth his time anymore. He'd rather take his chances with the enemy. V'no'ash mimani Shaul. In that way, Shaul will levaksheni od b'chol gvul v'Yisrael. Shaul won't look for me throughout the boundaries of Israel. If he knows I'm gone, then he's going to stop looking for me. V'nimladtiti miyado, and I will have escaped from his hand. So this is David's plan. So the way we ended the last parak, for those who were not here, last Tanach and Tea, was David snuck into Shaul's camp, where Shaul was sleeping, surrounded by his people, and David stole his spear from right next to Shaul's head and his water, and then he screamed down at him, I could have killed you. Clearly I don't seek your life, right? And then Shaul apologized again, but clearly David just did not trust it because he's going on the run, even though Shaul just apologized and said, you're my son, and you're surely going to be king, etc., etc. Clearly, he does not trust it. Now, what's interesting is that who he runs to, right? As we were mentioning, he runs to the Philistine. Anybody remember what happened last time he went to the Philistine? Anybody was at Tanach and Tea 3 months ago? Sully, Matthew? So last time David went to the Philistine, here's what happened. The bodyguards for the king of the Philistine, his name, the bodyguards for the king of the Philistine was the brothers of Goliath. So what do you think they were going to do with David? They said to the king, let us kill him. And David pretended to be insane, right? He pretended to be crazy. And we actually spoke about this today in class, right? So David pretended to be insane, and he started drooling on his beard. He started writing on the wall, Achish, was the king's name, owes me $1,000, and his wife owes me $10,000, and happens to be the king's wife and daughter were crazy, so he had a little bit of a soft spot for crazy people. And he said, well, I have enough crazy people in my house. Get him out of here. And they didn't kill him, right? And David was able to escape with his life. This is where David is running back to. Like, where's the logic? You escaped just barely last time, right? And now you're coming back, running to the same place. What else is going to happen, right? They're just going to try and kill you again, and you're going to have to escape with your life again. So what exactly is David's plan here? So, his plan is as follows. Actually, let's do one more pasuk before we get to his plan, because we need a little bit more context. Let's have him talk to the king first. But just a couple of things to point out over here is the fact that David is obviously correct in not trusting Shaul, because we're going to see when Shaul hears that David left town, Shaul's going to say to himself, oh, he left, I'm not going to look for him anymore, which obviously insinuates that he was going to pick up looking for David again. So it sounds like David made the right call, and also David didn't want to be around Shaul anymore, because every time Hashem saves his life from Shaul, it was by means of a miracle. And if you look at your merit as a bank account, every time David gets saved by Hashem from Shaul, that's merit out of his bank account. And he didn't want to keep spending money on this, right? His Olam Haba was going to performing miracles to keep him alive. So therefore, he leaves. Pasuk bet. Vayikam David. So David got up. Vayavar hu v'sheish me'ot ish, him and 600 men, asher imo that were with him. El Achish ben Moach melech Gat, to Achish the son of Moach, the king of Gat. If you're wondering where Gat is located, so the Plishti territory is where the Gaza Strip is today, but more land. So like where all the kibbutzim that were over there next to the Gaza, that was all part of the Plishti territory. Gat is, I think, even a little bit more northeastern than Sderot. It's like the north part of the Gaza Strip. If you know what Israel looks like, you kind of picture this in your head. So that was like the center. Gat was the center of the Plishti territory. So that's where David runs to. Vayeshev David im Achish migat, and David stayed with Achish in Gat. Hu ba'nashav, him and his men, ish beitu David ushtei nashav, and his entire household with his two wives, Achinoam Yisraelit, v'Abigail Eshes Nabeler Kalamit. Right, so he has his two wives. He went with everybody this time. So now let's get to the obvious question we said before. What in the world is David thinking? So one possible answer is that last time when he came, he came alone. He came on the run. He had just escaped from Shaul for the first time, right? People knew who he was. They said when he got there, oh, this is David, the guy who's killed, 10,000 Plishtim, but he wasn't as established as he is now. Now he's showing up with 600 men. He's showing up with the household. He's showing up with two wives, meaning, and at this point, he's much more famous than he was back then. So what's David's hope right now? His hope is that now he can provide value to the Plishtim, meaning he wants to try and convince them that he's on their side, which is obviously going to be a very massive tightrope to walk, which we're going to see. It's going to get him in trouble. But he's going to somehow try and convince the Plishtim that he's on their side. And now his feud with Shaul is well documented. The Plishtim know about it. So there's more reason, he's more famous, there's more reason for him to kind of convince the Plishtim that he's with them and he would be of service to them, he would be of value to them. That would be, also they have a common enemy, right? Your enemy's enemy is your friend, right? Their common enemy is Shaul. So there's something that he can convince them. So that's one answer. This other answer is amazing. This other answer is that we spoke about in class today, that what's the reason that Hashem made David's life get saved by acting crazy, or in another situation with Shaul, his life was saved by a spider, and in another situation, his life was saved by a mosquito. What happened? David said to Hashem, what's the purpose of the spider, of crazy people, of the mosquito? And Hashem said, those items are going to save your life, which was that story that we just said. So David thought to himself, the whole point before was for Hashem to show me, to teach me that lesson, that acting crazy is going to save my life. I already learned that lesson, so now I can go there and not worry about it, which is like an unbelievable way of looking at it. He escaped with his life, and he's like, no, that was Hashem just like toying with me. Like the purpose wasn't that they're going to try to kill me, it was to teach me that lesson. I learned the lesson, now I can go there and not worry about it. So those are the possible answers, but let's continue. Vayugad l'Shaul, and it was told over to Shaul, Ki varach David gam Gat v'lo yasib od levaksho, that David had fled to Gat and he did not chase him anymore, which again insinuates that he was planning on chasing him. Vayomer David, and David said, El Achish, to Achish, If I have found, please, if I found favor in your eyes, yitnu li makom ba'achat arei hasadeh. Give me a place in the field, v'yashbesh sham, and I will live there. V'lama, why yeshev avdecha be'ir hamamlacha imach? Why should your servant live in the city with you? Right? Okay. Vayiten lo Achish bayomahu et Tziklag, and on that day Achish gave him the place of Tziklag. L'chein hoita Tziklag l'malchei Yehuda ad hayom hazeh, and Ziklag has belonged to the kings of Yehuda until this day. So Ziklag, if you're wondering where that is, that's more south of Gat. Also, probably modern day Israel, right outside the Gaza Strip, maybe right around Gaza City or Khan Yunis, right on the Israeli side over there. So David makes sure to not ask Achish for a nice place, right? He says, I want to stay here, but I'm not going to stay in the city with you. Why? He doesn't want to arouse suspicion that David is planning some sort of insurrection, that he's trying to be where everything's at. Just let me live in the countryside. I just want peace and quiet. Right? I'm not a threat. That's what he says to Achish. So another alternative is that he just didn't want to live next to the Plishtim. Right? You're talking about idol-worshipping people that, were his sworn enemies, that he's trying to pretend that he's cool with them now, but he's not in his heart. So he just didn't want to be around them. Now it was after many days, that the time that he was in the Plishti fields was days and 4 months. So days could either mean 4 months, or in the story of Yosef Atzadik, when he says that he had days left in prison, it was 2 years. So either this was literally 4 months that he was there, or it was 2 years and 4 months. So what would David do? David would go and he would raid. He would go raid the Amalekim. He would go raid the Geshurei. He would raid the Grizzites as well, but Grizzi. And that was all the way south, even as far as the land of Egypt. So while David is living amongst the Plishtim, he's actually still fighting the Jewish enemies. And he's going going to these locations and taking care of business. Let's put it that way. Pasuk Tes. Vahika David et Aretz. And David attacked a region. And he did not leave no man or woman alive. So David would go to these locations and kill everyone. And he would take the flocks and the donkeys and the camels, uvagadim and clothing. And then he would come back to Achish. Vayomer Achish, al pishtatem. And then Achish would say to him, you didn't raid today, or where did you raid today? There's a couple ways we can read that. Hayom, Vayomer David, al Negev Yehuda, val Negev Yerachmeeli, val Negev Hakeni. Where did I raid today? By the Negev of Yehuda, of Yerachmeeli, and Hakeni. So obviously, what is David doing here? He's lying, right? He's trying to present himself like he's turned against his own people, right? Negev Yehuda, that's literally his own people. The Yerachmeeli were a particular family from the tribe of Yehuda. And the Kenites that we mentioned at the end were the descendants of Yitro, Moshe's father-in-law. So these are Jewish people. So he would go attack the Amalekim, and then he would make sure to travel in a way that he would come back from the land of Yehuda, and he would convince Achish that he was fighting his own people, right? That was his grand plan over here. And Achish would buy it because he would come back from that direction. Also, David didn't actually lie, because if you look at the words that he says, you did not raid today. Like kind of like accusing him, like, oh, you didn't raid today. And then David would name all the places that he didn't raid. Now, Achish thought that, he's saying he raided those places, but meaning he was able to not actually lie to him, but get him to believe what he wanted him to believe. So David did not leave any man or woman alive. La'avi got lamor, so that way they can't come back to God saying, Pen, you got to aleinu lamor ka said David. So and so David did. V'chol mishpato kol hayomim asher yashab b'stei plishtim. All the time that he dwelt in the fields of the Plishtim. So David made sure that there were no witnesses to what he did to the Amalekim and the Grizim, and right? He made sure he killed everyone. So he would take all their stuff and he would kill every single person there. That way word could never get back to the Plishtim. Vayamein Achish b'David, and Achish believed David. Lemor saying, Have'esh avisho ba'amo b'Yisrael. He has made himself despised against his people of Israel. V'haya li le'eved olam. He will therefore remain my servant forever. So Achish is watching this, right? Now, is he fully trusting of David at first? No, but once he hears that he keeps on fighting, he keeps on going and attacking the Jews, he starts thinking to himself, he can never go back now, right? He's just going and killing Jews every day. He must be hated. Therefore, where else is he going to go? He's stuck with me, right? So he's effectively got David on his side. Now, there's an amazing thing that's written over here that the Hamelech tells us. And the amazing thing is as follows, which is that it says twice when he says, when David says, lest that they find out or lest that they're told, it's lest they tell on us. That was the first one, which was pen yigedu aleinu. And then after that it says, the next line, Lemor saying, Kasa David v'chum, right? It's repetitive. Why is it repetitive? Because David was worried about two things. One, he was worried about word getting back to the Philistine. But two, he was worried about word getting back to the Jews. Meaning if he left someone from Amalek alive and they accompanied a Jew, right? We already saw that there were Jews who set him up for death with Shaul. The Zifim, who are from his own tribe, Yehuda. He was worried that if word gets back to them, then they'll double cross and tell the Philistine, right? So even if the Amalekim were not going to find the Philistine, he's scared that the Jews will still turn on him, which obviously is a pretty sad predicament for David to be in, where he's supposed to be the next king and he's living amongst the enemy, and he still can't feel that if a Jew finds out where he's at, he's not trustworthy that it'll work out for him. Any questions, comments, concerns on Perek Chav Zayin? Yeah.
Why would they willing to report on Jewish people?
So we've seen while David was on the run from Shaul, there were people who kept on reporting on him to Shaul. Now, what was their motive?
He was a king, I guess.
Their motive, so you might say, they're afraid of Shaul. So that's one possible thing, but it seems that their motive, because of who it was actually people from the tribe of Yehuda, which lets us know that their motive was that they felt disrespected, that they were chosen over to be the next king. They were jealous of David. They had something against David personally.
They thought he was supposed to be the rightful king, or they didn't really know who he was at that point?
They thought if there's going to be a king selected from Yehuda, it should be us. Somebody from our family, the Zifim, that was the same issue that Naval had with David, that he was a descendant of Caliph.
Who did he kill? Goliath? Did he already kill him?
Yeah, that was way back. That was already probably at this point a year and a half ago.
This is all where? This is which Sefer?
This is Sefer Shmuel Aleph. Yeah. So he killed Goliath 12 prakim ago. So a lot is, he's been on the run from Shaul for a while since then. Okay. Now let's see what's about to happen, because now it's about to get serious. Now, what's the obvious problem with that David is doing right now? What's the obvious predicament that could happen to him? Okay, besides, even if he covers, say, right now he's living in the Philistine territory, and he's been getting away with it for either 4 months or 2 years and 4 months, where he goes and kills Amalekim and all these other tribes, right, doing the bidding of the Jewish people and also for himself, right, while convincing the Philistine that he's killing Jews, right, or Yitro or whatever, and he's getting away with it. But what's the obvious issue we can run into? What if the Philistine go to direct war with Israel? Right? He's living with the Philistine. What's the first thing they're going to say to him? Join the war, right? Then what's he going to do? Then there's no hiding. So let's turn to Pasuk Aleph in Perek Chav Ches. Vayihi bayimim ahem, and it was at that time. Vayikbatzu Philistine, that the Philistine gathered et machaneim, their camp. Let's savali lachem b'Yisrael, to go and fight with Israel. Vayomer Achish el David, and Achish says to David, Yoda teda ki eti tetzeh b'machane ata b'nesheka. Know well that you and your men will go out with me to the camp. Right? So of course Achish looks at him and says, all right, buddy, let's see. First of all, this is David Hamelech, who's a famous warrior. Even if you didn't want to test his loyalty, even if you fully trusted him, you're talking about this is your most talented guy. Right? It's amazing that you've gotten David to defect from the Jews to you. He was the guy killing all these Plishtim, right? He's an extremely talented warrior. So of course, the first thing Achish is going to say to him is, you better join this war. Vayomer David, and David says, and before we even say that, there's a reason why they're going to war now. You know what the reason why is? Because David switched sides. Meaning they avoided going to war since David showed up on the scene, because who are they scared of? Of him. But now that he's on their side, going to war is the only logical conclusion. Also, Shmuel just died. 2 prakim ago, Shmuel died. As long as Shmuel was alive, they were scared to fight the Jews, right? For spiritual reasons. But now that Shmuel is gone, David is gone, and it's just Shaul left alone, of course we're going to go to war, right? Obvious decision. Vayomer David, and David says, El Achish to Achish, L'chein, therefore, Ata Teda, you will know, Et Asher Yaseh Avdecha, what your servant will do, right? You will know what your servant will do. What does that mean? You will know what your servant will do. What was that?
There's like, how the Jews are going to fight.
So if you're Achish, you hear, there you go, it sounds good, right? But if we look at his statement, he's not really saying anything, right? David is purposely speaking very vaguely. He's saying something that will get Achish to like, well, okay, we're good to go, but he's not really saying anything. He never really committed to anything, right? He's playing it really neutral, but kind of in a way that's convincing Achish that he's not, right? Playing it really well. Very vague statement. Vayomer Achish, and Achish said, El David to David, L'chein, therefore, Shomer, L'Rashi, Asimcha kol hayomim. I will therefore appoint you as my bodyguard all the days, right? So what's his job in the war? He's going to be the personal bodyguard of Achish, right? He wants him right next to him. So, first of all, I just want to point out that the word Vayehi, when a parak starts with the word Vayehi, that usually means something bad is coming, or something dangerous, or something negative. So in this time, the negative here is for Shaul, that war is going to happen against him, and he doesn't have Shmuel, he doesn't have David. For David too, this is obviously a very distressful time. How is he going to get out of this situation? We'll see in the next parak how he gets out, so we'll leave that hanging over for now. But Hashem is going to be kind to David and pull some strings to make sure David doesn't actually have to fight. We'll see how he pulls him out of it. But going back on this, why is he asking him to be his bodyguard? So there's a couple of reasons we could say. One, maybe he doesn't actually trust David. Maybe once he knows that even if he does trust David, once someone's out in battle and they're fighting against their own family, maybe even someone who wants to fight their family, at some point it's going to not do it, right? So what's the purpose of having him as his bodyguard? He can keep an eye on him, right? David can't be like out in war, like fake fighting, just hiding out, making sure not to kill anyone. He's being watched, right? And not only is he being watched by the number one target. This is where all the Jews are going to be coming to try and take out. So that's one reason. Another reason is that there seems to be a practice to place foreigners as your bodyguards. That way you can stop an insurrection from your own people during war. Meaning if your own people want to take you out during war at all, the best time to do it would be during war, when they're your bodyguards. So it seems to be that there was this practice of getting your foreign soldiers to watch over you because they're much less likely to pull an insurrection because they wouldn't be placed in power, right? A foreign soldier is not placing an insurrection because nobody's going to place the foreigner at the top, right? No matter what David does, he'll never be king of the Plishtim. Another Plishtim might. So that's kind of what he was thinking. Also, we know in Mishlei it says that this is Perik Chaf Zion, Pasik Zion. When a man's ways please God, even his enemies are at peace with him. And we see this pasuk happening with David right now, where his enemies are on David's side, so to speak. Let's continue. Pasuk Gimel. Ushmuel, Mace, and Shmuel had died. Vayispedulo, Kol Yisrael, and all of Israel mourned him. Vayik Rabu Baramah, they buried him in the Ramah, Uveiro in the city. But Shaul, Hasir ha'avos v'yasadyonim ha'aretz, and Shaul removed all the mediums and sorcerers from the land. Okay. Now, if you were at Tanach a couple weeks ago, you'll know that we spent time on Shmuel's passing already. We spoke about Shmuel's death. So why is it mentioning it here? Well, the reason why it's mentioning it here is, first of all, to teach how great of a prophet he is, and the fact that his death is leading to this war, the fact that he's gone. But also, Shmuel was such a great prophet that while he was alive, he had a school of prophecy, of prophets. There were prophets everywhere, right? You lost your donkey and you wanted to find it. You went to your local prophet. He'll do a little prophecy and he'll tell you exactly where it's at, right? Going to ask your rabbi a question back in the days of Shmuel was going to ask your prophet. There were prophets abundant, prophets galore. But when Shmuel died, prophecy ceased. There were no prophets left at all. Now, people were used to being able to talk to a higher calling, to get answers. So who do they start turning to? They started turning to sorcerers, mediums, people who do magic, dark magic, who can acquire some of that same power, right? As long as prophecy is in power, dark magic is in power. They're one and the same. The way I'll explain it, imagine it like an internet. You know, people wonder nowadays why people ever did idol worship. You ever wondered to yourself, why did people ever do idol worship? Like, I don't know about you, but I don't have an urge to do idol worship. Why did people do idol worship back in the day? We're told that idol worship was a stronger taiva, was a stronger desire than sex. It was stronger. What's the concept? The concept is it's like the internet, right? There was a Wi-Fi that they were able to tap into. On the good side, it was prophecy. But that same feeling can be used to go towards idol worship. Now, imagine nowadays we decided that even though, you have to fill that thing with the sink. Oh, yeah, in the fridge, there should be seltzer also, or the sink. So, if let's say the rabbis decided right now that even though there's Safari on the internet and there's so much Torah on the internet, but there's too much bad on the internet, let's get rid of the internet. What goes down? All the Torah and all the positive, right? It's a server. So think of it this way. There was a server of prophecy, but that means idol worship at the same time. Because we couldn't handle the taiva of idol worship, they took it down. But when they took it down, we lost prophecy. So, meaning these things are connected, the dark magic and the idol worship. It's one same location, right? It's the same way if they decided to get rid of having, taiva for sexual desire, then people wouldn't have children anymore, right? There's always the good with the bad on each side of this. So what happened after Shmuel died and prophecy ceased? What happened is people started turning to sorcerers to get their answers. So what was Shaul's response? To rid the land completely of sorcerers, right? It became a problem after Shmuel's death. So Shaul got rid of all sorcerers and it was completely gone. So now prophecy's gone, sorcerers are gone. You can't really get answers, right? They're used to getting answers. They're used to talking to Hashem. They can't get answers. By the way, I know Shaul seems like a bad king at times, but as you can see, he's complex, right? He's over here, he's doing what's right? Removing this thing from the land. Vayikvatsu plishtim, and the plishtim gathered. Vayavu vayachnu b'shunem, and they came and they camped in Shunem. Vayikbot Shaul es kol Yisro v'achnu b'Gilboa, and Shaul gathered all of Israel, and they camped at Gilboa. So, two camps looking at each other, about to go to war. Vayar Shaul es machane plishtim, and Shaul saw the camp of the plishtim. Vayara vayecharad libo ma'od, and he feared, his heart started to tremble greatly. So Shaul is absolutely terrified. Why is he terrified? Well, it's different. This is not the old Shaul. We know that when Shaul took over his kingdom, he was extremely confident, right? He took hold of the kingdom, he waged war against all the enemies, and wherever he turned, he would overwhelm his enemies. That's how his kingdom was described to us as first, right? Now, why was that? Because he was a tzaddik at the time. He practiced exceptional piety. He was generous with his money. He was extremely humble. He was a Torah scholar. But once Shaul sinned, his heart started to tremble greatly, right? Meaning, you know when you messed up, right? You know that you don't have Hashem behind you, right? You know you're not holding where you once were, right? You know when a person does an Avera and they don't feel good, right? And then they're scared, they don't, right? Like Yaakov Avinu, he was scared to go fight Esav. Why? He thought he didn't have any merits left. Right? A person can feel sometimes that I don't feel like Hashem is behind me. What makes you feel like that? You. When you do things knowing that you're doing things that maybe Hashem shouldn't be behind you for, right? So Shaul knows that he's messed up a lot, right? He doesn't feel it anymore. Vayisha'al Shaul ba'Hashem. So who does he turn to? Again, he's not a bad person, Shaul. Of course, he turns to Hashem. V'lo ano Hashem, but Hashem did not answer him. Now what does that mean, he turned to Hashem? Well, how do you turn to Hashem? So So tefillah nowadays is like the way we do it, but that's not in their world. There's a real way to turn to Hashem, in terms like you can actually talk with Hashem. So let's see how we did it. So Hashem did not answer him. Gam b'chalamot, not with dreams. Gam b'urim, not with the urim. Right? What was the urim? That was when you would go to the Kohen Gadol and you would ask the Ur V'Tumim a question and it would light up and you would get an answer. Gam b'nevim, or prophets. Now prophets were already established. There were no prophets for him to go to. The Urim V'Tumim, some say that he was able to ask the Ur V'Tumim, but it didn't answer him. Though we saw a couple prakim ago that David actually had the Ur V'Tumim. He had Evyatar Cohen who had it. So that wouldn't really make sense. It could be that he didn't have the ability even to ask the Urim V'Tumim. So what did he do? Yeah. So what did he do? He decided to ask Hashem through dreams. How do you ask Hashem through dreams? So what I'm about to tell you, don't try this at home, but this is what Shaul did. So it's called She'ilat Chalom, dream questioning. Dream questioning. You ask Hashem a question through a dream. How do you do it? You fast for 3 days. That's step 1. And then you go into a mikvah. Step 2. Then you recite Tehillim number 12. You'd bet. One time, and you have in mind the holy name that Hashem associated with this Tehillim. I don't know if we have access to that, but that's something you need to do. Then after that, there are certain additional verses and special prayers that you need to say. So I'm not giving you all the steps here, sorry. Leaving it dry. But Shaul did this. Then you would ask your question, and then you would place a sheet of paper underneath the pillow, and the answer would appear there in the morning. So a blank sheet of paper.
Does that do a dream though? I usually would count days when I don't sleep.
Well, you mean you do it at night. So yeah, it seems it's related to the dream somehow, because the answer would appear there in the morning. And when you wake up, you would find written on the paper either the first or last letters of some words or a pasuk or something like that, and it required deciphering. Right? It wasn't just like you're getting a complaint. You needed to decipher it, which means you needed somebody who could decipher it. You needed a Torah scholar to decipher it, right? Sometimes it couldn't be deciphered, and then you'd have to repeat the procedure, asking for a clear answer. That is She'alat Chalom. This is similar to, in Chabad, they do the letters. You ever hear of this? Right? In Chabad, you have the Rebbe. He wrote, people would ask him questions, and he would write answers to them, right? And there's bookshelves, bookcases of his responsum to people's questions. What do people do nowadays that the Rebbe is no longer alive? They go to a library and they ask their question, and then they point to a random shelf. They do it themselves. They take a book off, they open it to a random page, and they read the Rebbe's answer. Now the Rebbe's answering, of course, a different question that somebody actually sent to him. And the Chabad will tell you, this is the Rebbe answering you. Right? And then, of course, because it's not actually answering you directly, of course, what's there has to be deciphered, right? So it's very similar, right? So this Shilat, right, it happens now. People do that in Chabad now, right? Some people...
Was there something else going on also? Was there also a book in the Chumash or something?
Could be. Probably. Vilna Gaon was very into that stuff. So anyways, this is what Shaul did. And again, I only gave you if you want, you could fast for 3 days to say the Tehillim and immerse in a mikvah, but I can't give you the other prayers. I don't have it. Sorry. So anyways, you're going to have to try the Urim V'Tumim or a prophet like Shaul did, and there weren't any for him. So why is Shmuel, what is Shaul doing here? He's trying to find answers, and he can't, right? Nothing he did worked. And because of this, because Shaul is so desperate, he's going to now do something extremely extreme. Extremely extreme. He's going to do something that you would not imagine that he would do. He feels he has no answers, and he has to take a drastic course of action. So what does he do? Vayomer Shaul. Shaul says, La'avadav, to his servants, Bakshu li, find for me, Eshes, woman, Ba'alas ov, who is a medium. Ve'alcha, and I will go to her. Ve'adrashaba, and I will consult with her. So remember, he's the one who got rid of all the sorcerers in the land. And now what's he saying? Right? Why were other people turning to sorcerers? Because they didn't have any answers. And now he got rid of all the sorcerers doing what's right. And now he does the unspeakable and he says, get me a sorcerer. Right? Now this would be like someone, being like, I don't know, let's say alcohol was outlawed from Judaism. So people started smoking weed. And everybody would start saying, no, get rid of the weed. Shouldn't be any marijuana by Kedushim, by Kedushim, Shabbat, get rid of it. And then that same rabbi comes the next morning and says, oh my gosh, I can't get my alcohol. All right, somebody go find me weed. It's like, you got rid of it all, right? That was you who said that, right? Like Shaul is the king who got rid of this drug, so to speak, of the sorcerers in place of prophets. And now he wants to turn to one. Well, there aren't any, right? He got rid of all of them. Well, did he? Because Vayom Rabadav, his servants say to him, there's a woman who's a medium in Ein Dar. So they clearly actually knew about one, right? So who is this woman? We'll have to answer that in a second. But now he's going to do the unspeakable, and he's actually going to go to a sorcerer himself. Now, Shaul obviously understands the severity of the situation, right? He understands that with David on the other side, with Shmuel gone, this is really, really bad things, right? And he tries to ask Hashem, and it doesn't work. And he knows this isn't allowed. But you know what? He's going to do it anyway, because he feels he has to protect his people. Last time, when he was at Tzaddik, in the very beginning of his reign, when Yonatan ate from Yonatan Shaul's son, when Yonatan ate from something that Shaul said that if you eat from this, Shaul made a shavua, if you eat from this, then it was the middle of war. If you take from the spoils of war, then you will, whoever does that will die. And Yonatan wasn't there when that happened. He was the only one who was in a different part of the war. And he tasted a little bit of the honey. And when they tried to go on with the war, it wasn't working. And what did Shaul do in order to get an answer? He did a lottery. And the lottery kept on landing on Yonatan. And he said to Yonatan, what'd you do? And they figured out what happened. And Yonatan said, all right, you got to kill me. And Shaul said, I got to kill you. This is his own son, the prince. And then all the people got up and was like, oh, you're not killing Yonatan, right? And they absolved him of the shavua. But you see, even lotteries he's not doing now, right? He so feels that Hashem is not with him that he's going to do something expressly forbidden by the Torah. Now, our sages tell us who this woman is. And I'm going to tell you off the bat right now, I have a problem with this opinion.
Yeah, this is the wrong thing to do in the end. It was
To go to a sorcerer? Yeah, it's expressly forbidden in the Torah. So it doesn't mean there's not power to it, as we'll see. It's going to work. But it's wrong. So the best example would be, the same way a person, when they're married, experiences intimacy with the spouse, they can experience that same intimacy with, a prostitute. That doesn't mean that there's some not intimacy there. It's just wrong now, right? So going to a medium works on some level, but it's the wrong way to do it, right? You're supposed to go to a prophet, which is like going to a spouse, versus trying to get your means, met by going to the wrong outlet for it, right? A lot of time people think that there's no power in Avodah Zarah. There is. It's just prophecies, intimacy with Hashem like a spouse, and Avodah Zarah, Hashem put power into it, and that would be like, going on the internet, right, so to speak. So anyways, some people say that this woman was actually the mother of Avner, the general of Shaul's army. So why is she a sorcerer? And they do that by saying that Ha'isha, the woman, has the same gematria as He im Avner. She is Avner's mother. That's where they get this proof from. That's the same gematria. And she was not a sorcerer. She was like someone who would be like, if you have a great rabbi who knows about dark things because he has to fight against it. Meaning she was a very righteous woman who implemented this knowledge in order to as a study, right? Not for use. But over here, Avner said, you know what? Shaul needs this, so do it for use for him. Now, my problem with this opinion is that the very next pasuk you're going to look at it, Shaul's going to disguise himself and go to this woman, and this woman's going to be shocked when she finds out it's Shaul. So this opinion does not work with the main body of the text, where it's saying that Avner's in on it, his mother's in on it, she's not a sorcerer, right? That's why they were able to find this woman. They did successfully get rid of all the sorcerers. It doesn't work with the text, this opinion. So for me, this opinion does not work at all. I don't know how you feel about it. If you could somehow make it work, to say it's Avner's mother, and then the very next pasuk says that he disguised himself. And so why is he hiding, right? Yeah.
Also, if it's also for Shaul, it's going to be also for her to do it.
Right.
The sorcerers, no matter what her reasoning is.
Also that as well. Right. Avner is saying, I'm just saying now it's allowed to relieve the king of his distress, but that doesn't seem to add up either. So anyways, now why is Shaul doing this? One, Shmuel is no longer alive. Had he been living, he would have gone to him. Two, he was more scared than ever before. And three, no one is praying on his behalf. Shmuel, he has no merit. So he just, when you hit rock bottom, you do crazy things. Shaul's at rock bottom right now, right? Vayischapesh Shaul vayobash. As Shaul disguised himself and changed begadim, his clothing, acharim, to a different one. Vayelech hu shnei anashim, and he went with two men. Imo vayavo ela isha, and came to the woman Laila at night. Vayomer, and said, Kasumi li ba'ov, I beg of you, crave for me, through your medium, a spirit, li es asher amar alaka, and conjure up for me the person that I tell you. So, first of all, it's interesting. The pasuk tells us that he disguised himself and changed his clothes. Right? It says, "Vayis chapesh Shaul vayibash begadim acherim." So, why are you telling? Right? That's double language. So it's telling us that in the word vayis chapesh, disguise himself, chafshi is in that word, which means free, meaning he cheapened his kingdom. Right? He cheapened his kingdom by doing this thing that he outlawed, and by dressing like a regular person, going to a meeting, right? This is like the king going to smoke weed now after outlawing. Like you're making a joke of your own kingdom. You're dressing like a stoner on the streets, right? Like what are you doing, Shaul? Right? So meaning he disguised himself and changed his clothing, meaning he's no longer the same Shaul. He's completely disguised from who he was. He's at rock bottom. There's no coming back from this. He's changed his clothing. This is this is a different man at this point. His inner clothing. Okay. By the way, just to show you the complexity of Shaul makes sure to travel with two men with him. He takes Avner and Amasa, his two generals. Amasa is actually the cousin of David, surprisingly enough. And that is the proper way. You go anywhere, you're supposed to take two people with you, two men with you, two Eidim with you. So you see, he's still like operating within halacha, right? While going against halacha. It's very complex, Shaul. But anyways, the big question over here that the rabbis ask is, dark magic, apparently, this is what they say, does not work at night. This kind of power does not work at night, which is funny because you would think the exact opposite. You would think that this power would be special for night. But it seems that this power does not work at night. So why would he go to them at night? So others say that's not true. Why he went at night was to hide his identity from the woman. Because he came in the middle of the night. Kings don't travel at that time. And he didn't take a large entourage with him. He only took two people. And who's Shaul asking for? Who do you think Shaul is asking for? He's going to ask for a person to come back from the dead. Who do you think he's going to ask for? Shmuel. Right? He's asking for Shmuel. Did he ask for Shmuel now? He didn't want to shock the woman, right? To ask for Shmuel. And that would give away that it may be who he is. So you can see his whole operation here is very at night. Also, the word over here, kosem, indicates that what did she use? She used some sort of branches. So the Rambam says how they did this, how they got up spirits. So if you wanted to do dreams, I gave you the steps for that. If you want, now I'm giving you the steps on how to draw up a spirit. Here's what the Rambam says. You take a myrtle branch in your hand, okay? And then you put your arms together, and you would start reciting a certain charm. Don't have the words for the charm, sorry. You can get the branch. And then you would burn a particular incense. I can't tell you the exact incense. And then you would wait until you hear a hushed voice talking from under the ground, right? And that hushed voice would start answering your questions. So if you're planning on doing that, those are the basic steps. So if you look, Shaul never asks her to talk. Usually she'll talk to the person, right? Shaul doesn't ask for that. He says, bring the person up. I want to talk to them directly, right? So Shaul is going to talk to Shmuel directly, and which is amazing because Shmuel is actually going to deliver a prophecy to him. So which makes Shmuel the prophet so absurd. We already knew from Shmuel that he made other people prophesize in the past. Shmuel is the only prophet who prophesizes from the grave as well. Other prophets prophesize while alive. He is a prophet in life and in death. He came out of his grave to deliver a prophecy, right? Which we're going to see. Why did Hashem resurrect Shmuel? so that he can tell Shaul what's about to happen. So let's do one more pasuk and then we'll stop. Vatomer ha'isha, a love, and the woman says to him, Hine, behold, ati edati, you know, et asher esa Shaul, what Shaul will do, asher hichrit esa avot yesedunim min haaretz, right? Shaul, he cut off all the sorcerers and mediums in the land. Veloma, so why? Ata mitnakesh benafshi lemteni, why do you lay a trap for my soul to have me killed? Right? So she says, you have me doing something illegal over here, right? It's almost like if, going back to our drug analogy, right? If the government gets rid of all the drugs, and then somebody comes and says, like, you ever see those, like, in the movies when, like, a cop goes to someone who's now clean and they're like, oh, tell me where it's at. So you're trying to get me in trouble. Like, I'm on parole. Like, I don't do that anymore. You know what I mean? Like she's like, you're trying to get me killed, right? The punishment for this is death. Not knowing who she's talking to is Shaul, right? So you see how good of a job we did in getting rid of it, which, again, I will reiterate, I still don't understand how you could say it's Avner's mother, because this whole dialogue makes no sense. And next Tanach and T, we're gonna see this woman's gonna freak out when she figures out that it's Shaul, and Shaul is gonna come back from the dead, and things are gonna get very spooky and very crazy, and we're gonna have to see how David gets himself out of this war. So, thank you for joining Tanach and T. Any questions, comments, concerns?